Okay, in this video what we're going to have a look at doing is how we can actually read from and write to text files in Python. Often we have so much data that we're dealing with in our programs. They're held within variables, they're held within lists, but when we actually close our program down, all that data is lost. So it would be really good if we could actually have a way of storing that data once the program's closed. And the way that we can do that is we can actually have a few lines of code that can write the data from variables or lists into a text file, and then maybe once after we've closed the program down, the next day we could open up that program again and we can read in that data from the text file. Okay, so let's just have a little look to see how we can do this. Now what I've done is I've created a folder, and in that folder I've got a Python file which is at the moment empty, and you can see that there's no text file at the moment. Now in Python what we can do when this file starts to load, there we go, what we can do is if we want to create a text file, the first thing we've got to do is actually make a variable, and I'm going to call it new file, and then I'm going to write this line of code. Open, it's an open function, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my text file a name. I'm going to say what type of file it's going to be by putting in the .txt at the end, and then I'm also going to put the letter W in speech marks after a comma. Okay, so what this is doing is it is creating a variable for Python to identify the text file, and then we're using the open function to actually assign the external file to it. So here what we're doing is this open function is creating a brand new text file, and it's opening it up in write mode, and all of that information is being assigned into a new variable. So if I was now to save this and quickly run the code, nothing actually happens that we can see. However, if I go back into the folder, you can see that a new file has been created. So this line of code here is creating a new file and it's opening it up within Python, but obviously I've got no more code, so actually nothing else is being done with it. So if I wanted to write some code into it, what I need to do then is I need to say, okay, let's get that variable new file, and I'm going to write down .write. So new file .write, I'm going to write the following into that text file. I'm going to open up my brackets, and in speech marks I'm going to write my word, and then I'm going to press save, and we'll see what happens now. If I run this code again, nothing at the moment, but I'll go into my folder which I've just closed. That was silly. And if I open up new file now, you can see that hello world has been written into that text file. Okay, now it might be that I want to write a few more lines of code. Now to do that, what we must get in the habit of doing if we want to put some text in and then write a new line, so write on a new line, we need to finish each bit of text with \n. Okay, so \n is going to tell Python when I'm actually writing a new line that writing a word that I want to go on to a new line after that word. So I could do another new file.write line, and I might want to say hello world again, and I want to do a third and final bit of text, and this one I'm just going to say end. So this is going to write 3 lines of text into my text file. Hello world, then it's going to go on to a new line, it's going to write hello world again, then it's going to go on to a new line, and then finally it's going to type end. Now I don't need \n there because obviously this is the last line, so I don't need to write any more. I'm going to click on save, I'll run that, and we'll see what happens. Let's open up the new file, and you can see that exactly what I've asked it to do, it has done. Okay, so it's written hello world again, and end into a text file, putting them on a new line after this \n. Okay, now what I should do is I should always finish this with new file.close when I've finished with that text file. So then Python will no longer have that open and do any editing to it. So run that for a final time, and there's my text file finished. Okay, so that's how we can create a new text file and write lines of code into it. Really, really simple. A few lines of code there. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can actually read from a text file into a program. So as you can see, I've got no lines of code in my Python program, yet I've still got this new file that I've just created, and there's 3 lines of code in it. So if I want to actually read this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write in new file, my computer can catch up, new file dot open, that's a mistake, equals open, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remember the name of that text file, which is new file.txt, and unlike last time where I opened it up in write mode, I'm going to open it up in read mode this time. So here I've created a variable called new file, and I've used this function open to open up the new file.txt that's in my documents, and it's going to open it up in read mode, and all this information, the text file, is going to be identified from now on by this new variable called new file. Okay, the next thing I want to do, if I want to actually read from it, I'm going to print the following: new file, so the variable new file dot read, and then finish with some brackets. And because I don't want my program to close before I've actually read what's in my output window, I'm going to finish with input. So if I click on save and I run that code now, you can see that what it's done is it's actually read the contents of the text file and it's placed it in my output window. It's printed it to my output screen. Okay, so it's read it and then it's outputting it, and that is reading and writing text files in its simplest form. Now there's a couple of other things that I want to show you. It's all very well reading a whole text file, but it might be that you want to read a text file one line at a time. Now to do that, instead of having new file.read, which reads the whole of that file, what I could do is I could write in read line. So print new file.read line. If I click on save and I run this now, I will stop that one running. So you can see that it has read the first line. And if I just copy this code and paste it down again, instead of it reading just the first line, it's going to read the first line and then it's going to read the second line. And again, if I wanted to, I could paste that for a third time, and this time you can see that it's read all of those 3 lines there. Okay, so new file.read line will read a line at a time. And then finally, it might be that you don't want to read each line all the way through. You simply want to read the last line. So to do that, instead of it being new file.read line, we write down new file.read lines, and then after our brackets we put in some square brackets and we put the line number that we want to read. So 0 would be the first, 1 would be the second, and 2 would be the third line. So if I click on save and I run this, you can see that it's read the third line and it's just printed it into my output screen. And again, just to show you that it does start from 0, if I type in a 0 here, it's going to read the first line, and again if I put a 1 in this square brackets and I run it, you can see that it is only displaying the second line of that text file. Just to prove to you, here's the text file here. So open new file.txt in read mode. That function will open the file, and all that information will go into our variable called new file so that Python can then deal with it. And then print new file.read lines brackets square brackets 1 means that it's going to only read the second line of my text file, and it's going to print it to the output window, as you can see. And that is reading from and writing to text files in Python.